Well, it's draft season here on MASN All Access, which means it's time for one of my favorite conversations every year, and that's with Joe Doyle, the founder of Overslot. Ball knower, draft knower. Joe, thanks so much for taking the time once again.
Always, Brendan. I love the show. Let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's jump right into it. So the Orioles have 3 picks in the top 31 at 19, 30, and 31. But this is also the 3rd year that they've drafted a little later in the first round. I know the Orioles are happy about that, not drafted in the top 5, but it does change your draft strategy. So what have you seen over the past 2 seasons from the Orioles with this kind of new era of drafting at the later half of the first round?
Yeah, I think in recent years, Baltimore's just been willing to take a little bit more chances. I mean, you don't have access to the premium elite guys, but they're still chasing tools. And, you and I were talking before this show got going. It's still way too early to figure out whether or not that new philosophy is going to pan out. But, Vance Honeycutt came with hit tool concerns, but he was a surefire center fielder with bat speed. Enrique Bradfield, a surefire center fielder with good bat to ball skills and the potential to steal 70 bases a year. That's obviously a pretty big departure from what they've done in the past. I don't know if they're going to continue to take those specific types of shots in 2025 just because what you've seen over the last couple of years is a difficult assimilation to professional baseball for those guys, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, what do you think these past few draft classes have told you about what the Orioles could do this year?
Well, the one thing the Orioles have never strayed away from is they don't select players that chase outside of the zone. They just don't. I mean, it doesn't. Vance Honeycutt came with hit tool concerns, but he also came with like a 17% chase rate. Mac Horvath, the exact same way. Bradfield, the same way. Like those pillars to build upon to become a good hitter at the next level, that selectivity, that mature approach, they've never strayed away from that. There's been different archetypes of the players that they've selected, but I think that mature approach is something that they hone in on every single draft. So whoever they end up taking at 19, 30, 31, I would reckon if history is any sort of precedent in the Mike Elias era, it's going to be a player with a polished approach.
Yeah, so when you're doing a mock draft and you see the Orioles up next on your board, do you just kind of rule out anybody without a great chase rate? Is that kind of the one tool that you look at and say, okay, this is either an Orioles kind of guy or it isn't? What are some of those tools?
Yeah, I think the best thing that we can do is take history and reverse engineer a model and try to figure out exactly what Baltimore likes to target. I think it's no secret that Baltimore is a model-driven team. They do like to use their analytics and lean on the data especially hard. And so not using that information, I think, would be a detriment to the process. So what you can do, like I said, is you try and reverse engineer. You try and figure out exactly what this organization likes to target. And thus far, it has been guys with very, very sound approaches at the plate. It could be a power hitter. It could be a center fielder. It could be this. It could be that. But at the end of the day, they really want that foundation, that bedrock of pitch selectivity.
Yeah, so let's dive into this year's draft class because, as mentioned, the Orioles have 3 picks in a dozen selections. So there could be some guys flying off the board for them. Just tell me about the draft class around that range.
Yeah, I would say right about where the Orioles are going to select is where you're going to see this run on high school shortstops start to come off the board. If we look at who's going to be available, you look at the Steele Halls, you look at the Daniel Pierces, you look at the Xavier Nyans, the Gavin Fiends, the Josh Hammonds. Like those are the types of players that I think are going to be there. And this is a very strong class for high school shortstops. I mean, I've got 9 high school shortstops. If you want to include Ethan Holiday and you want to include Gavin Fiend, who I think will ultimately be third baseman, if you want to include them in the high school shortstop bucket, I have 9 high school shortstops in my top 20 overall prospects right now. And, one thing the Orioles have done over the course of the last couple of years, over the last handful of years, is they have leaned into the strength of a draft. They have gone after the demographic that is going to provide the most fruit in that draft. So it wouldn't surprise me if a run on high school shortstops started at the 14, 15, 16 range. If the Orioles made an emphasis to go in and get one of those high school shortstops at 19. But as a whole, this draft, it's a little bit lighter on college hitters, and I think you're going to see college hitters go later in this class. You're going to see college hitters go in the 15 to 30, 15 to 40 range. So Baltimore is positioned uniquely to capture potentially some of the more intriguing college hitters in this class. We know that Baltimore doesn't like to go after college pitching. I don't know if they're going to have a lot of access to college pitching with where they're selecting. So I would expect that high school shortstop class and, some of those advantageous college position players that are going to fall down the board a little bit to be targets for Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be right up Baltimore's alley. We're talking about high school shortstops and good college hitters. Those are the two pools that the Orioles like to select from. We'll start with the high schoolers because there are two names I wanted to ask you about, Xavier Nyans and Kason Cunningham. They're very different players. They're both left-handed hitting high schoolers, but Nyans is more of a power profile, Cunningham a bit more of a hit tool profile. Tell me about those two guys.
Yeah, I think Nyans is especially interesting with what they've done in the past. They've gone after guys with hit tool concerns, but big frames and big power. I mean, you just look at what they were able to create with Gunnar Henderson. You got to start somewhere, right? Now, Nyans is interesting in that he had the lowest, to my knowledge, of guys that had 50 plate appearances last summer. I believe he had the lowest chase rate of any of them. Now, that does come with the precursor that he was pretty passive and he didn't want to pull the trigger, and that's going to come when you don't swing the bat a whole bunch. But if you just go based off of what they've targeted in the past, Xavier Nyans makes a lot of sense with the power and the tools and playing on the dirt and that selective approach. Cunningham is another one that I think kind of fits right in that 19 range. A very, very decorated hitter, extremely impressive bat-to-ball skills, a selective approach, not as selective as some of the guys that they've gone after in the past. He can get a little bit aggressive and get outside of the zone at times, but the thing that Cunningham has over Nyans is he's probably going to play shortstop. He's probably going to play second base. There's athletic tools there. He can run. Posted one of the more impressive run times in the 30-yard dash at the combine. So I wouldn't be surprised if either one of these players ended up being a Baltimore Oriole with that 19th overall selection.
Yeah, two guys that seem to fit the mold for the Orioles in the MLB Draft over the past few seasons. Now, there are two bigger names on the college side that I want to ask you about as well. The first one being Jace Laviolette, the outfielder from Texas A&M. Coming into the season, we were talking about this guy as a potential #1 overall pick based on what he did after his sophomore season. Junior year, bit of a step back. What did you see from him this season, and why are we talking about him as somebody who could potentially be available at pick 19?
I think the misnomer about Jace Laviolette is that he backed up this year. And I understand that the baseball card makes it look like he backed up, but in essence, he just didn't take a step forward. He came into the year with hit tool concerns and whip concerns, and they really just kind of sustained. They were where they were for most of his collegiate career. But the thing about Laviolette that I think makes a lot of sense for Baltimore, 17% chase rate, right? Like, he's a very selective hitter, passive at times, especially against left-handed pitching, but this is up the middle. It's center field. It's big batted ball data. It's a selective approach. I mean, this is a lot of what we saw with Vance Honeycutt. Now, will they do the Vance Honeycutt experiment twice in 2 years? I don't know, because, Vance Honeycutt's assimilation, like I was saying, to professional baseball hasn't been great. And generally guys that have strikeout concerns over the course of their collegiate careers do have a tough time adjusting to the pro game. So I would just kind of be surprised from this chair if Baltimore went center field, center field, center field with their first pick 3 years in a row. At some point, you've got to fill up the rest of the roster, and Laviolette comes with enough concerns where I think you could maybe go a different direction.
Yeah, and if they do go in a different direction that's not a center fielder, there's a Golden Spikes Award winner at shortstop who could be available at number 19, and that is Vahiva Aloy, the shortstop from Arkansas. Talk about big batted ball data there. Tell me more about him.
Yeah, Aloy. So listen, you got to fill out the middle of the field. You got to fill out the shortstop position. I understand that Baltimore is already in a fantastic place at the shortstop position, but Aloy might be the best defender out of anybody in that organization. That includes Holiday, that includes Henderson, that includes Mateo, that includes anybody that you want to put at the shortstop position. This is a plus glove. It's a plus throwing arm. It's a pro-ready body. I mean, he's built like a horse. He is a pro-ready shortstop. Again, the reason that I'm a little bit hesitant to throw Aloy into the Baltimore mix is it was a 30% chase rate. And I understand. I'm leaning on this so heavily in this podcast. But like I said, if you don't lean on history and you don't go off what they've done in the past, specifically a team like Baltimore that has been so model reliant over the course of the Mike Elias era, I just don't really know what tools you're using at your disposal. So, yeah, Aloy hits the ball really, really hard, but there are bat-to-ball concerns. There is an approach concern. But at the end of the day, this is one of the better shortstop prospects in the class, so I certainly wouldn't rule it out.
So, Joe, I threw 4 names at you. Throw some names at me, guys that I haven't mentioned that could be on the radar for Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean, the first guy that I point to personally is Andrew Fisher at Tennessee. From everything that I've heard, Andrew Fisher absolutely blew the interview portions of the MLB Draft Combine out of the water. He was one of the most impressive guys there. It's extremely impressive bat-to-ball skills. It's extremely impressive barrel rates. It's a 17% chase rate. The only question I think with Fisher is what's the ceiling, right? Because he's playing first base at Tennessee. He wasn't really given the opportunity to play third base this year at Tennessee. I would be interested in seeing if he would get that shot in Baltimore. But if you're going off models, if you're going off of, who is the most polished, highest floor, checks all the boxes player in this class, I think it would be Fisher. But like I said, my only hesitation there is there's not a lot of athletic value in Fisher. The other one that I would say would probably be Dean Curley, the shortstop at Tennessee. Tennessee's got a pretty good stockpile of players this year. Curley, up the middle player, could play shortstop, could play second base. It's above average to plus raw power. It's above average feel for the barrel. Again, it's a 16% chase rate, comes with some passivity. But I think when you're looking at these players who work long counts, who wait for their pitches, who swing at the right pitches, Tennessee's just got a couple of them. So those would be 2 guys that I would watch for. Lesser, I would say Kane Kepley at North Carolina and Luke Stevenson at North Carolina. Keep in mind, Matt Blood, a Tar Heel for life, and he's the one that is in charge of making those picks. And so both of those guys, low chase rates with some tools up the middle of the field. I'd circle their names as well.
Yeah, and the Tennessee guys, not a huge change in wardrobe, just a different shade of orange. So that would work out well if they end up an Oriole. But Joe, thank you so much for the excellent insight as always, and we're counting down the days until draft night.
My pleasure.